I couldn't sign my life away to pharmaceuticals anymore. There was a line in the sand. I just couldn't. I actually took home he prescribed them to me, and I went and picked them up and I took them home and I had them sitting on my table. I couldn't take them. I could not take those drugs.
Rebecca, how did you find carnivore?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me on your channel. I really, really appreciate it. Well, I first heard of carnivore about a year and a half ago, and I've only been carnivore for 6 months. So I heard of it a full year before I actually started it. And I do remember what it was. It was an interview on YouTube with Kelly Hogan. I was extremely impressed by her interview, to the point that I rang a friend and I said this crazy thing on YouTube, and this lady looks incredible. She feels incredible, just eating meat, and it just seemed like a bit of an oddity rather than something that I would do myself. It didn't occur to me that that's something that I would do. Also, I took away from that video that it was an effective weight loss tool more than anything, and I wasn't looking to lose weight, so I didn't act on that video. But then two things happened, I suppose, over the course of a year. I continually got suggestions from YouTube to watch more carnivore videos, having watched one. And also, I just started noticing, because I never used to buy meat. I was not vegetarian or vegan, but I never used to buy meat because it's so expensive. I would tend to just have some meat in a restaurant. And I just noticed that when I did do that, I was extremely full for much, much longer than my usual diet. And I would never snack in the evenings if I went out for lunch and had meat. So I suppose it was a bit of a drip feed from YouTube suggestions and just my own bodily experience. But the reason it mattered so much is because I have multiple sclerosis. And so I suppose the story does start back in 2016 when I first went down. I had my first episode of MS, which was a nerve failure in my eye. That started me on a health journey that I was age 36 when that happened, and I'd always enjoyed extremely good health up until that point in my life. So it had never been a concern of mine to watch my diet or think about my body at all, really. I didn't treat it with the respect it was due. Suddenly health became the most important thing in my life. And I was terrified. So I immediately switched to what I felt was a radical diet at the time, which is the OMS diet, overcoming multiple sclerosis, which is a bit like a vegan diet, except it does include fish, but it also eliminates all saturated fats, no vegetable oils. So you can't just go and get a vegan burger. It was whole foods, it was natural foods. And I followed that diet, and I looked great. I lost weight. My skin was great. Everybody was giving me lots of compliments when I followed that diet, but I felt like death. I felt absolutely awful. I'm not saying it was the diet that made me feel awful. I'm saying it was the multiple sclerosis that was making me feel awful, but the diet didn't change anything in terms of my symptoms. And to be honest, I didn't expect it to. So I stuck to that diet for a couple of years. And the reason I left that diet behind was because I moved to Spain. I moved to Spain in order to give myself the best chance of getting well again and get back into the workforce, a sunnier country. And I moved off grid up a mountain for my health. So I was starting to make big changes in my life for my health. But what happened was I moved to Spain, and it was because I was now up a mountain and it was the pandemic. A few weeks after I arrived, everything shut down, and it was all just very, very crazy. And I still wasn't really well enough to keep on top of everything I was having to do. So I let my diet fall to the wayside. And for about a year or two, this is when I watched the carnivore video. I was in the middle of this terrible diet that I knew I had to address. But even watching the carnivore video didn't I don't know why. I was in a bad habit. Frozen pizzas, absolutely 100% carbohydrate based diet. And so anyway, so I eventually saw Kelly Hogan. The idea got seeded and started to grow. And it was about 6 months ago that I just thought, why not? I'll give it a go. And I don't even know why I tipped over the edge and started it, but I did. And within a week, I had noticed that, because I wasn't overweight, but I was very bloated. And the bloating disappeared within a week. It had reduced. And that was enough for me to think, well, this is fantastic. You know, I'm 43, so it's the age when you have to start thinking about your weight, and your health. So I just went completely into it. And what happened was my strength came back, which when you have multiple sclerosis is basically getting your life back. I had done everything I could for my health. I'd changed my entire life for my health. I'd uprooted from England and moved to Spain, and whole new way of life, city to country, you know, all of this was for my health. But the thing I hadn't addressed was my diet, and it was the missing piece of the puzzle. So up prior to that point, I was much better than I had been when I was at my worst. When I was at my worst, I was in a wheelchair. And I was barely able to finish a sentence because it wasn't just my physical weakness, it was my cognitive weakness. I had terrible brain fog, and my memory was about 5 seconds long. And at my worst, I couldn't hold a conversation with somebody, which is meant that I didn't know who I was, because I'm a real talker. You know, I love chatting to people, and I've always had a surplus of energy. So I just didn't know who I was when I was at my worst. And then I managed to get myself to a place where I was relatively strong compared to that time, but I was still not strong enough. I didn't have enough energy to manage my off-grid life, which is quite physically demanding. I changed to the carnivore diet, and it's as if I don't have MS. It's been so radical. So the years leading up to it, I could talk about at length, but really it's all about that 6 months ago when I started the carnivore diet. I'm back to being basically who I was before I got MS. And I had lost who I was. I had gone into such a deep hole that I didn't know who I was anymore. And I was in survival mode for years on end. And I didn't expect the diet to put that right, but it has. It's confirmed to me all the time, because I bump into people who I haven't seen for a long time, and they're like, people who I met in Spain since I arrived in Spain, so people who didn't know the me before I had MS, and they're like, wow, you look really switched on, you're looking great, you know, wow. Like, they talk to me now as if I'm a normal part of the human race, which it felt like I wasn't for a long time. So it's not just how I feel. Other people see the difference in my energy. It's
So, I mean, congratulations. I mean,
Thank
that's
you.
amazing in 6 months.
Thank you.
Can you kind of paint a picture? What was day-to-day life like a year and a half ago?
A year and a half ago, I would wake up in the morning and my legs would hurt so much, and I would feel so tired, even though I'd slept, that I would struggle to get out of bed. Basically, I used to dream of being able to wake up and get out of bed like I used to be able to. Um, and I would basically just pace around the house, too tired to drive down the mountain and go to the supermarket. Or it was just tiredness. It was me. I actually didn't struggle with very bad MS symptoms other than fatigue since I moved to the mountain. And I do want to make the point that it hasn't just been the diet that's helped me. It has also been moving to the countryside, to a purer environment. So I do think that a health journey is very complex and multifaceted. And I think diet is fundamental. I don't think you'll get anywhere if you don't address your diet. I've come to believe that that could be the first step to take in a health journey. But it's not the only one. So I had at my worst, when I was back in Birmingham in England, I was slumped in a wheelchair in the living room, unable to hold conversations. You know, that was when I was at my worst. By the time I was a year and a half ago, I'd rehabilitated myself to the extent that I could now walk my dogs on the mountain, but my entire day would be building up the energy to do that. So it was like I had my health. No one realized that it wasn't a visible disability. It was an invisible disability, and it wasn't as strong as before. So in my mind, I almost didn't believe it myself. I was convinced that I should be able to get up in the morning and walk the dogs. And I was, very hard on myself because I'd done this huge move to the mountain and I still wasn't able to really live fully. And the one thing I was never able to do up until now was work. I found it impossible to get myself together to get back into the workforce. That just seemed to elude me, whatever was going on. Now I can. Now I am working. I'm independent again. So daily life was basically just how I felt was pointless. My daily life felt completely pointless. I'm just alive. I'm alive. I'm not achieving anything. It's the same every day. I'm feeling guilty the whole day because I haven't walked the dogs yet. I'm eventually walking the dogs and then I'm done for the day. I'm exhausted now, and it just wasn't a full life. It wasn't a productive life. I was proud of myself for having achieved this big change of moving off grid, and it's been a learning curve and it has brought me forwards. But as I say, when I started the diet, all of it just started to function again. Everything just started to function.
You're in Spain now. Do you have a doctor in Spain that you sometimes visit? Or?
I do. I have a neurologist.
Okay.
So actually, the first year that I came out here, I didn't even sign up at a GP, a family doctor, because I was so traumatized by my experience in conventional medicine. So when I first got diagnosed, I was put on treatment, MS treatment, daily injectables. The drug I was given was called Copaxone. And MS drugs carry side effects and you're supposed to take them for life. And I was a rabbit in the headlights when I first got diagnosed, and I just got herded into the system, and which I considered at the time to be a blessing. I thought I was very lucky to receive a diagnosis so that I could apply for disability support and I could be put on treatment. But I was refused disability support. And the treatment was traumatizing. The injection itself didn't hurt, but it would stay in your system for an hour afterwards and burn inside you. It was just and it doesn't help your symptoms, and it doesn't guarantee that your disease will be halted, because the point of them is to slow the progression of the disease. But you will never know if in your case they made a difference, because everybody's case is different. You can't judge your case off somebody else's. So there's no real way of knowing if these drugs are doing anything positive for you. You don't experience any benefits. And I found that for various reasons, everything got so very difficult in England that when I came out to Spain, I just thought, I don't want to be an ill person. I don't want any of this. And I actually spent the entire year during the pandemic not even registered at a family doctor. But then eventually I got hit by a big relapse of fatigue after a heavy snowfall up the mountain. It was a week long. I got snowed in up the mountain, and that hit me really hard. And I did have extreme fatigue. And of course, this is before I started carnivore. And I went down and I registered at a GP, and I got given a neurologist. So I now have a neurologist who is adamant that I should start MS treatment. And I am adamant that I should not. He's tried to put me on chemotherapy. Again, this was before I started carnivore, so I already did not want to go down the route of pharmaceuticals. I wanted to be able to manage my MS naturally, if possible.
Why do you need chemo?
I don't know. To reset my immune system or something like that. You can have stem cell therapy for MS. It was a mild chemotherapy, but it would have made my hair thin and fall out. And I just didn't want that. I mean, at the time I was, this was a couple of years ago. So I would have been turning 40, single at the time. I was single, and I just did not want to be depressed and have my hair falling out at that age and at this stage in my life. I just knew deep down, I will get depressed. This sounds superficial that I don't want my hair to fall out, but it just mattered. I needed more than anything to not be alone. And this was going to make me feel sick have my hair fall out and have no confidence and be depressed. So I couldn't sign my life away to pharmaceuticals anymore. There was a line in the sand. I just couldn't. Something I actually took home that he prescribed them to me, and I went and picked them up and I took them home and I had them sitting on my table. I couldn't take them. I could not take those drugs. I took them back to the hospital because they're extremely expensive. And they took them back. My neurologist is really upset with me. He's he really applies the scare tactics. He tells me that I'm really taking a big risk because my MS. As he says to me, you can forget about your MS, but your MS won't forget about you. And I've had MRI scans that show I've got further lesions in my brain. Again, this is before the carnivore diet. My last MRI scan was before I started the carnivore diet. So I'm wondering if that might clear up my lesions. But because I have lesions, he's within his rights to be pushing treatment. One thing he told me that really shocked me was that he can withhold acute treatment if I refuse my chronic treatment, if that makes sense. So if I don't take their treatment for my long-term condition, if I have short-term problems, they can refuse me treatment. So I just feel this pressure, this pressure to go down that road, which wrecked my life before. And then at the same time, I've found carnivore, I've started carnivore, and lo and behold, my symptoms have cleared up. Now, I've been told since the beginning, there's nothing we can do for your symptoms. Your MS symptoms are just what happens. We don't know why they happen, and there's no treatment for them. There's nothing you can take. You can smoke marijuana. That's about it, which I do. And it's the only thing that helps. But until carnivore came along. And in fact, since carnivore started, I've started to feel like, oh, I should stop smoking marijuana. I don't need it anymore because my symptoms have gone. I don't. It's incredible that I've been told categorically that there is no explanation or cure for your daily symptoms, and they've completely cleared up. You get with MS, you get an array of different symptoms. You really do. You could have bladder issues, you could have balance issues, you could have vision issues. Obviously, the fatigue, which is just completely runs you over. That's like being hit by a truck. I've never known anything like MS fatigue, but it's completely invisible on the outside. But it's you're told that's that. Your medications aren't going to make a difference to your symptoms. You just have to learn to live with them. It's not true. It's not true. All I had to do was change my diet. I don't have these issues. And my neurologist is confused. He's confused as to why I'm not sicker. And he says it to me all the time. And I say to him, I don't know either. I don't have your training. I don't know. But my body doesn't lie, you feel better.
It's giving you relief. I mean, would you obviously until you have an MRI, you don't know what's happening, right? But I mean, your feeling is that like carnivore has reversed my MS. Is that your feeling?
I wouldn't want to make a statement like that at this stage because you just don't know with MS. I'm 7 years in and I've been reading, not that I've never really been one of those types that would read online everything. I've never tortured myself with what might happen in the future. But what I have picked up online is that a lot of people, when they're first diagnosed, they're okay maybe for the first few years. They've got a whole load of new symptoms they're not used to, but, the relapses don't really start in, until a few years in. And I do remember somebody in a forum saying, just wait till you're 7 years in. I'm 7 years in, and what I can say is it's reversed my symptoms. That's what I can definitely say, because I was so ill that I don't see any other. I was on a slippery slope. I was on a slope going down, and there was no. I feel like I pulled myself back from the brink of that. Whether I've reversed my MS, I don't know, because there's two different sides to MS: the symptoms and what's happening in your brain. What's happening with MS is demyelination. So your immune system is attacking the nerve fibers in your brain. And they don't know why it's triggered to do that. And that's what they can't stop. That's what the drugs can just hold back a little bit or slow the progression of. But your symptoms actually don't correlate to your demyelination. They can be, you can have barely any demyelination and lots of symptoms, or vice versa. So there's two different sides to it. And the symptoms I have reversed. That I can 100% say. They were there. I had all the symptoms. Now they're not. And consistently. And actually that started when I moved up the mountain. I think that there's something about the environment as well. It's what you put in your body, but it's also where you put your body. I believe. So yeah, I would say it's reversed that downward slide. Whether it's cured my MS, I'm not in a position to say. And I would probably address that question having had another MRI scan to see if the lesions are reduced. So the types of symptoms I'm talking about, which my partner has also observed, is the radical reduction in fatigue is obvious to anyone who's around me. And my memory, my memory that was why I couldn't hold conversations, because I couldn't hold thoughts. It was like sand through my fingers. And it was so confusing. It was so distressing. I don't have that issue anymore. The memory is my anxiety as well. I'm an extremely anxious person. I always have been. But my anxiety went to unmanageable levels after I got sick. Like I have deep nervous system blowouts. I don't know how to describe it, but my nervous system is just out of whack. I would say that's improved as well. So I said it in a video on my channel that I went to Morocco. Just the fact that I went to Morocco is incredible. I was never going to travel again. And I've been with my partner to Turkey and to Morocco, van lifing in the past year. It's absolutely incredible. I've got my life back. It's adventure but
it's just amazing the changes happen so quickly.
Yeah.
After so many years, right?
It's hard to process. It's not easy to tell the story, not because it's upsetting, but because it's too unbelievable. It's unbelievable that I was as young as I was. That's unbelievable to me now, because you adjust very quickly to whatever your situation is. You get used to it very quickly. I'm now used to the fact that, oh yeah, I'm similar to how I was before I got sick. I mean, I'm 7 years older, so it's obviously I'm not as sprightly as I was when I was 35, but I definitely feel like, okay, I feel more like a 36-year-old than a 43-year-old. And yeah, it's hard to remember how daily life was. It's almost like I don't remember it, because it was traumatizing as well. So with trauma there's often memory issues. So I look back and I just think I lost my life, and then I woke up again in a mountain cabin in Spain and had my life back. It's and I wouldn't change the fact that I'd moved here as well. So carnivore feels like it's brought my life back onto an incredible, interesting, adventurous track, and I've got a future to look forward to. What a gift. But what really bugs me is who else is out there sitting in a wheelchair, unable to finish sentences, staring at the same four walls every day, and they don't know. That's what bugs me. Who else out there could just have this information and get their life back? But the doctors aren't telling them to try it.
No, I mean, the doctors, most doctors are not thinking about metabolic therapy for anything, So, like, I mean, this is amazing. It's just it's so nice to hear a story like this, right? I mean, of course, it's nice to hear people say I've lost weight and all that kind of thing, but it's amazing to hear something like this. What's the pattern that you're following day to day? Like, how many times are you eating, and are you eating just meat, or are you eating other things?
So I'm at the moment eating twice a day. actually, I should say that the fasting element is something that I realized is super important. That for the first, so I've been on it for 6 months and I've experienced all these radical changes, but I did actually plateau for a little while, a few months in. And I came to realize it was because I wasn't paying attention to the fasting. And so, and that's also helped me to just schedule my day around the fasting hours and the eating hours. So I wake up, I'm able to get out of bed. I'm busy for the first few hours while I'm waiting for breakfast time. Then at 11, I sit down and have bacon and eggs every day. And I look forward to that so much. 4 eggs and an entire pack of bacon if I'm feeling particularly hungry. And then I probably will eat again at maybe 4 p.m., 5 p.m. or later. My cutoff point is 7 p.m. It depends if I'm out and about or if I'm at home, but I will usually just have a second meal in the afternoon and it's beef. I like to have minced beef. And I do eat a bit of dairy, although I've been advised to reduce the dairy for MS. And I think that's probably, I do love cheese, but I don't need it. It's just an additional condiment, you know. But recently I have actually been including mushrooms in the diet. I'm in favor of mushrooms. I don't know how other carnivores feel about this, but they're not actually vegetables, obviously, they're fungi, and they are very low in carbohydrates. And a lot of them have got medicinal properties. So particularly lion's mane for demyelination, it actually helped remyelinate. There's studies that show it can help to remyelinate in the brain. I personally think that mushrooms could be an ally for the carnivore diet, and it just adds extra flavor. They soak up the fat. I don't have them every day, but once in a while I'll buy some mushrooms, and once in a while I'll buy some avocados as well. I know there's debates over whether fiber is helpful or not, but I think it's just 'cause I like a bit of variety, and I also wonder whether fiber might help us. But I'd be interested. I'm open to being corrected on that matter. I'm quite new to the diet, so I'm still at this point where I'm trying to work out how it works best for me. The thing I've had trouble with is finances. It's so expensive. Um, and there are ways to manage it, but the thing is my partner doesn't follow the diet, so we're getting 2 loads of shopping. Um, and I, that's been quite tricky. So what we're planning to do is raise our own animals, because we have the benefit of living out in the countryside. We have the land to be able to do that. So we're going to raise our own animals. And I have chickens for eggs, and bacon's quite cheap. But it's beef that's expensive. But beef is the best, most nutritionally dense meat. So I don't know how to manage that. I'm in the middle of trying to figure that out. But it's 2 meals a day. And in some ways it's cheaper, isn't it? Because you're not buying all the extra, you know.
You're not buying the snacks and, oh, that pizza wasn't enough, I'm gonna have to get something else and all that kind of thing.
That's it. No snacking. I love that. I love that about the diet. When I've had my second meal, I don't think about food. It's just not an issue. It's not something I think about. Because it fills you to the point where you're not even interested anymore. It's not like I used to be a real potato chips person. And you can fill yourself up on that stuff and keep going because it's addictive. Even though your body's saying, oh, I don't want any more, you can just keep snacking. I find with meat, that is not the case. You just reach a point where you're simply not interested anymore and you're full, and that's that. And that, in theory, should reduce the cost of the diet because it means all the additional extras aren't there. I think it's mainly because it's not the 2 of us that are following it. So we're getting 2 lots of shopping. But yeah, we've got plans to take measures to reduce costs.
How much land do you have there? When
Well,
you say on top of a mountain, I'm imagining this peak, where it's just a house stuck on the.
shall I come clean?
Sure.
Okay, we're moving off the mountain. The mountain is absolutely incredible. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I do have a couple of acres on the mountain. But the problem with it is that it's extremely steep, as you say. It's a mountain slope. So since I met Anthony, we've got lots of new plans and projects. And we've realized that actually, although the mountain is incredible, it's the isolation that we want, not so much. It doesn't have to be, you know, hundreds of meters up in the air, as long as it's isolated in a rural area. And it just makes life a lot easier to be on a flat. I've come to realize. And so we're actually in the process of buying some land in Galicia, and we're going to relocate. And it's an old farmhouse. Is it hectares? 2.5 hectares. And so we're going to have sheep, we're going to have chickens, ducks, and it's incredibly
Sounds
exciting.
nice. Sounds
Yeah.
really nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And so the plan for you now is just Spain forever?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Unless they refuse me residency. I've got temporary residency. If they grant me permanent residency, I'm staying. If I don't have to set foot in the UK again, I won't.
Hmm.
And that's just because those years were so hard. Those years were
Hmm.
so hard. I didn't have any support. I think that's what was made it so hard. I was alone. I was alone when I moved up the mountain. I met Anthony a couple of years after I moved here. So I was the first 2 years I was here during the pandemic, and in the context of Brexit as well, having to fight for residency. It was yeah. I couldn't live in the city for many reasons. I don't know if you will include this in your channel, but I discovered that I was actually sensitive to Wi-Fi and telephones. Many people don't believe me. That's fine. I'm used to people not believing me on that. However, I feel it, and consistently. And so being in the city was part of the reason why everything was I was gradually just losing. If I go to the city now and I spend an hour in the city, I'll start to feel those same feelings, just like a dragging down almost of my center of gravity, and I get like a fluttering in my throat when I'm near a Wi-Fi router. I can literally tell when there's a Wi-Fi router near me because I will feel a fluttering in my throat. And the day I switched off my Wi-Fi router in Birmingham and connected a wired connection and just started isolating myself from that was the day I started to get my energy back enough to be able to move to Spain. And I had to move to Spain when I did because of Brexit. So it was all just a crazy chain of events that I could barely believe myself. I was just believing my body. That was the only thing I could believe. My body was, I was finding air pockets so that I could just drag myself back up into a functioning life. And that's where it started, actually, not diet, my environment, changing my environment. So now with the carnivore, I found that I can tolerate Wi-Fi routers a little bit better. I'm less affected by it. So I don't think that I wouldn't go so far as to say that my MS was caused by Wi-Fi routers, but it made me sensitive, electrosensitive. And there are many people out there who report the same. So similar to carnivore, there's personal testimonies of people who report the same symptoms I experienced. So I would take that for what it's worth, with a pinch of salt, if you like.
Can you talk a little bit about your channel? Because you've got a channel, I guess you spend a lot of time talking about your situation and carnivore on the channel. Have you had other people with MS or anything like that reaching out to you?
Loads of people. People have said they're going to come and visit me on the mountain. I've had people, loads of people have reached out, and in the comments, and my email address is also available online. So people have found my email address and written to me, which I love. I love having this. The channel has been absolutely amazing. I started it. Well, it existed before I started carnivore. My aim was to document my off-grid life as a chronically ill person. But what I found was, because I was chronically ill, I didn't have anything to say. I was just like, well, I don't do anything. So it didn't really go anywhere. But as soon as I put up my first carnivore video, which was just a spontaneous 10-minute thing, I got a few more subscribers and more comments than I normally would. And I just thought, oh. And so I started documenting my journey, and my channel started to grow quite quickly. I now have still really small by YouTube standards, but 2,000 subscribers. And along with that has come a community of people who struggle with MS or similar chronic illnesses, who are not going the pharmaceutical route. And I don't know people like that in everyday life. I never met them. I've always felt like an outsider in the MS community, and I never got involved with forums online. At the beginning, when I first got diagnosed, I did go to MS groups, MS yoga, MS counseling, MS neuro rehab, lots of groups, you know, and I didn't, yeah, I didn't really feel like just because this person has the same condition as me doesn't mean we're going to have the same set of values or opinions. Or well, it's fine to have different opinions from people, isn't it? But values often is an issue. And I would often be kind of looked upon slight suspicion. Why aren't you taking the drugs? Are you a conspiracy theorist? You know, that's kind of the
Yeah, you don't do the mainstream thing where you ask a few questions and suddenly you're a conspiracy theorist these days.
Exactly. But I have done a PhD about conspiracy theories, so it really offends me when people call me a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, no, I'm a conspiracy theory theorist. I've got a PhD in this stuff. I know what I'm talking about. No, I'm joking. But it does annoy me because it is, like you say, all it is you have dared to question something which is not questioned in the mainstream news. And that's it. It's used as a label to discredit you before anyone's even listened to what you have to say.
Yeah, your phrasing's really good there. It's like a label. It's a label to slap on your head to say, now, okay, you can shut up now. Just sit in the corner and look like the dunce or something.
That's right. And it works. I've lost friendships because I've expressed an openness to something, whatever issue it might be. I've literally lost friendships. And I feel like carnivore is borderline within that. You know, it's not a conspiracy theory, but it's something that's not supported by the mainstream. And yeah, you see that written all over my doctor's face. Like when I went to my neurologist just a week or so ago, I actually interviewed him for my channel and I put that video up. When I was in that meeting, he saw this around my neck and he said, "Oh, is this onyx?" And he started trying to get, he was saying, you believe in crystals, don't you? Because you're on the carnivore diet. which is fine. You know, I could believe in crystals if I want, but it's in his head, he's lumping everything together in non-scientific, you know. And then because of the way the pharmaceutical industry has gone over the past few years, there's a heavy weight to it all, isn't there? So yeah. I worry that in the future there's going to be some kind of censorship on YouTube around alternative therapies, which mean that the pharmaceutical industry isn't going to profit quite so much.
Yeah, it's a concern, definitely. You know, and doctors like Dr. Berg are already talking about stuff like the search results are not looking the same as they used to and things like that. Yeah, we just got to keep our fingers crossed and also think about other platforms to, you know,
that's right,
to use.
Because they do spring up when something gets shut down, others spring up. But as we were talking about my channel, the whole point was I've been really reassured by the fact that there are people out there who do share those same values and who are also looking for people who are going down the same route, because it can be a very lonely road to be somebody refusing drugs for your lifelong condition when the weight of the world is upon you saying you should take these drugs.
Yeah.
You doubt yourself. Am I doing something really stupid here? You know, but to have the YouTube channel, and it's amazing because like I fully expected to be absolutely shouted down by putting up a video about the carnivore diet. I fully expected, because that's what happened with the Wi-Fi. I tried to share what my experience about Wi-Fi, and I put my head above the parapet and I had to duck down really quickly. I realized that that's not been the case with carnivore. With carnivore, there's a community out there, and it's a wonderful community. I feel like I now have friends who actually want to come and visit me and actually meet me and are so kind and supportive and doing the same things. And that is amazing. I mean, that's life-changing in itself. Yeah, it's the people, lots of people are out there trying this diet, finding results, and that right there is data for a scientific study, if only the doctors would listen. But my neurologist says, it's great, it's working for you, but that's as far as it goes. It's working for you, but there's no evidence. That's what they always say, isn't it? There's no evidence.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay, and I get that, like when it's just working for you, but the thing is, once it starts working for another person and another person and another person, then it's like it's like if we take it away from MS for a second, we just look at weight loss, or we just look at, you know, improving, I don't know, body composition or something like that, you know, like my situation with weight loss, that's an N of one case, right? But everyone else that eats exactly the same way as me has the same results or better.
Yeah,
Then it starts to become a bit more than just one person, you
that's
know.
right. And that's how I came across it. I came across Kelly Hogan, thought, wow, that's an incredible story. That's amazing. Filed it away as an anomaly in my mind. And then I started watching other carnivore videos. These people all look incredibly healthy. They look great. They've all got really interesting stories to tell. And it's just that buildup of anecdotal testimonies, anecdotal evidence. That's not proof, it's evidence, but it's still part of a scientific procedure, gathering evidence. And I think it's quite shocking that patient testimonies aren't given more credence, that's where it should all start, isn't it? People talking about their experience, and especially if it's such a positive experience that people are having, and it's
Exactly.
happening all over. Like you said, to take it away from MS, I've had chronic eczema all my life. It's gone. No more eczema.
Similar thing for me. My eczema's gone too. But,
Right.
you know, and when all these people start experiencing the same thing, well,
Yeah.
there's a reason, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I am interested to ask the people that have reached out to you through your channel, um, that have MS, are they like people with MS that are excited about the prospect of trying carnivore, or are they people that are already doing it?
The people who have reached out, I've had 4 or 5 people reached out, um, to my email address, are people who are already on the diet. Yeah. But there's many people have commented saying, I'm thinking about starting it. Your videos helped inspire me. What a feeling. I mean, obviously I hope it works for them. I hope I haven't inspired them to do something which is going to harm them. But to think that, because as I said, like, one thing that bugs me is thinking I managed to change my health situation so radically by my lifestyle decisions. Who else is out there thinking that they're powerless? Who else is out there thinking that that isn't an option for them, and facing a future as bleak as I was facing? The idea that my videos might inspire somebody to make a choice which then has a positive effect means more to me than anything, really. Having been a chronically ill person, I have the deepest empathy for all chronically ill people, for all ill people. It's changed something in me. I suppose it's, when you have a child, you open something in your heart to all children. It's the same, like with sickness, it's opened something in my heart to all sick people. I don't want people to suffer as I was suffering. I want to be part of this movement, which is seeking to put the power back in people's hands about their health. It's a real mission. I think it couldn't be more important, because more and more people are getting sick. More and more people are going down with autoimmune conditions. Attribute it to whatever you want. I mean, I have many things I would attribute it to myself, but the fact is, it's what's happening. Cancer, autoimmune conditions are skyrocketing. And at the same time, pharmaceuticals profits are skyrocketing. And it's not okay. It's not okay.
Yeah.
And it's like we now have to fight for our right to make our own decisions. Like, it's not okay. That's tyranny.
Yeah, it is. It's getting pretty scary, and yeah, we need to we need to fight back, and we also need to definitely take our health into our own hands.
Yeah, because it's possible. I was told it wasn't possible. I was told that this is it now. You are passively helpless in the face of this encroaching disease that's going to take away your life and put you in a wheelchair. And that's not what's happened. And it would have happened, I believe, if I hadn't started making my own decisions, flying in the face of all the advice I was having, and everybody telling me, "You're crazy. You're moving up a mountain on your own with MS. Are you mad?" But it's put me on the journey of doing my own thing, and I do think my PhD has been part of that as well. It gave me the confidence to believe in my own assessment of things. So I feel quite lucky. To be honest, it feels like the universe has put me on this path because of the timing of everything. I'm sure, we're all put on a path in this life, and this very much feels like the path I was meant to be on for whatever reason. Even if I only end up helping a couple of people, that's worthy of the mission, and but to have my life taken away, and then I found that when I lost everything, because I lost it all at the same time. I lost my career, my family, my friends. I lost everything that made my life, everything that made me understand me as who I was. I didn't recognize myself anymore, but something inside me was still me. It's a hard experience to articulate, but I was sitting in my wheelchair thinking, who am I now? Because there's nothing that I recognize in my life. It's all over, but I'm still here. It's still me. And it was that inner sense of, I don't know what, that just made me think, this isn't how it ends. This is not how it ends. And the universe somehow guided me towards making these decisions, and they worked. And it does feel like a miracle. It does feel like a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's pure, simple nutrition.
Right.
The proper
But
diet.
yeah, but because of the way everything is framed around us,
That's right.
something as simple as nutrition making us better does feel like a magic pill, right?
Yeah.
So, Rebecca, how do people find your YouTube channel? What's the name of the channel?
It's called Cabana Chronicles, and you can find it on YouTube. Cabana
Okay.
Chronicles. Yeah, yeah.
Cabana Chronicles. All right. Well, I'll link to it down below.
Thank
But
you.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
And
me.
I'm very happy to hear you're doing so well.
Thank you.